I just want to call out here really quick these colors, the background colors. Green means that I think most people are kind of on board with this concept already, that something weird is happening. Down here, the color revolution maybe less so, but I think civil war, a lot of people are very concerned about civil war. So I think all of that is kind of in the public consciousness. When we get to yellow, it's a little bit less so, right? These are a little bit more fringe topics now where we're getting into. The next one would be war with China. And I believe we're already at war with China. The warfare these days, there's a series of different types of warfare, and we may not be at a hot war or an atomic level war with China, but we're certainly in fifth generational warfare, which is information warfare.
We're in the information age. We are in fifth generational warfare. That's where it is not effective to use weapons and to hurt and maim to try and control people. You need to use propaganda, information to get what you want. Why invade a nation when you can convince them to kneel and lay down their arms? Think about what's happening in this country. Think about how many people are saying you must kneel, you must bow and bow forever. You must give up your weapons. We are seeing in this country people believing it is better to be disarmed and subservient and have no police at the same time. Fifth generational warfare. That's what's going on.
And really the battle is being conducted through hacking.
Turning to SolarWinds' colossal cybersecurity breach, which left several government agencies, including the Defense Department, vulnerable for at least 9 months. In March, the IT firm's data breach went undetected and may have exposed information from some of the highest levels of government. So why did it take so long for Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency to uncover the hack?
I think we just had experienced biowarfare with COVID coming out of Chinese Wuhan labs funded by deep state actors.
We do have other stories that show us that China has been trying to cause us and our allies harm. Perhaps it's because of the coronavirus negatively impacting their economy, and it's an act of desperation, or perhaps because they realized they can weaponize the crisis for massive political and global economic gain. The Associated Press reported China didn't warn public of likely pandemic for 6 key days. In this story from the Foreign Policy, China isn't helping Italy. It's waging information warfare. The populist five-star movement has become China's chief enabler as Beijing spreads disinformation about the origins of the coronavirus while sending aid shipments to the EU countries where it seeks influence. As it turns out, much of this aid didn't actually work. In this story from Politico, Russia and China push fake news on coronavirus crisis, report claims. We have another story. Chinese trolls are spreading coronavirus disinformation in Taiwan. The New York Times says, as virus spreads, China and Russia see openings for disinformation. The two powers amplify discredited conspiracy theories and sow division as they look to undermine the United States, which brings me now to the first story we'll actually read through. Has the U.S.-China Cold War now begun?
We're engaged in an active fifth generational war with China, and that this war is actually being battled in the hearts and minds of our politicians and our elite class. So if you can control the decision-making, the people that make decisions, you can really control the policies and the outcomes of the country and kind of suppress the population. This is how they actually behave in China. They have a communist authoritarian regime, and that is their go-to model. And so we're seeing those kind of tactics being played out in our American way of life, which is very strange. So we've got war with China. But it still goes deeper than that. I think we could also be looking at a potential World War III scenario. So, in this concept of the uniparty, there's a ruling elite that is in government, big business, Hollywood, stuff like that, right? That there's a handful of people, the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, right, where they can control a tremendous amount of resources, and they have a huge amount of power to kind of push against the populace and get their own stuff in. But what if that wasn't just in the U.S.? What if that was in China? What if that was in Canada? What if that was in Mexico? What if that was across the world, right? What if every country had this type of a ruling class scenario and an income inequality?
And this is the structure that they want. And the whole thing is about centralizing power. The more you centralize power, clearly the fewer people have control over more and more people. You centralize more, even fewer people have control over even more people. And what happens is the more you centralize power, the more power you have centrally centralize even quicker. And so centralization of power goes faster and faster and faster because of that sequence. They want a world government that would dictate to every country. In fact, they want the end of countries. They want a series of unions, not just these. They want a Middle East Union and others, but these are some of them. And they're all mirrors of the European Union. And by the time you get here to nation states, and they want to break nation states up into regions, they have no power whatsoever. And the power's moving more and more into so-called democratic operations like the World Trade Organization and the World Health Organization.
Well, that might get us into this kind of a World War III, where we actually, instead of having a bunch of countries engaging in a physical warfare the way we saw in World War II, and it may come to that, but really I think what's happening here is more like fifth generational warfare, which is information warfare and propaganda and technology. It's all about control of data and public opinion. And economics, right, or coronavirus, locking people in their homes, stuff like that. So that war is actually, I believe, being fought between all of the nations, and it's being fought between the globalists, the ruling elite in every nation, against the nationalists, the populist base.